My name is Cedrik Neumann, and today I will talk about how to profile airflow tasks with Memray. I mean, this is not going to be very, like a rocket science, but rather it's a collection of airflow features we can leverage together to have a smooth experience profiling tasks. But first, a little bit about me. Apart from the introduction, I studied mathematics and computer science in Berlin. 2013, that's when I became a data engineer. And in 2015, I actually started working with Airflow. 4 years later, I had my first commit. And over the last 6 years, I worked at King, helping migrating King's data orchestration to Airflow from Jenkins, which sounds as bad as it is. And for every solution, there's always a problem. And in this case, we had like a DAG which intermittent task failures, high memory usage. Also, the DAG parsed, it was very unstable. Sometimes we had import errors or it was slow. The issue is that I'm not an expert in profiling Python code and never got really to the point of profiling that DAG. At the end, we managed to optimize the imports of the DAG and it works fine, but I still had this problem in my head. And then after a bit of procrastinating and hacker news, I stumbled over Memray. I never heard about the Python memory profiler before, and this one looked like very, very good. It allowed me to run from within Python, to profile functions, or even profile entire Python processes. And this was, at the end, the best ideal hack day idea I had in last February. I wanted to see if I somehow can integrate Memray into a production Airflow environment and how I'm going to do that. So this is where we're going to leverage existing Airflow functionality. First, we need cluster policies in order to monkey patch an existing task instance. Then we take advantage of object storage, which provides us with an abstraction over common remote storage backends, S3, GCS, and so on. We want to access those reports from the Airflow UI, so we have operator extra links. And at the end, we need to serve those reports. We have last blueprints. Let's go through some examples. They're kind of a simplification of the actual code, just to demonstrate how it works. First, we need to monkey patch the task. We have this task policy, which basically runs a check for the particular task if we should profile it or not. This can be a static configuration. Could be also you could evaluate parameters or whatever. There's a lot of flexibility. And if we profile, we just wrap the function in a wrapper, the execute function, the execute method, and that wrapper basically takes care of running the function in Memray and then generating reports and uploading to a remote backend. This is available, cluster policies is available since Airflow 2.6. Last year, there was a really good talk actually in the last year's Airflow Summit on cluster policies. And if you don't know about them yet, you should check out that talk. The next step is getting our results from the production environment to remote storage. This is done with object storage. First, we operate in a temporary directory. We create our profile, create our reports, and then we just use the object storage interface to iterate over our files and upload them to GCS S3 and whatever you have. And this is one of the most recent features, I would say, 2.8. It's still experimental, but I think it's one of the best features of Airflow 2, as it allows us to operate on abstract file concepts instead of implementing things for each storage backend. And so once we have our reports, we also want to have a link in the UI, and this is where we take advantage of operator extra links. This is a fairly old feature. If our report is there, we basically just return a corresponding URL. And then, in addition, instead of defining those operator extra links just for one operator, we can define it for all operators. So we don't have to do much more work. It's going to be there. This is available since Airflow 1. And If you're still running on Airflow 1, you'll have other problems, I would say. And at last, we need to serve our reports. And this is where Flask blueprints come into place. It's one of Airflow's oldest plugin mechanisms to add endpoints to the web server. And we can use, again, the object storage API to get a file handle and just send it as a file, like served like a static file in Flask. So this one has a warning because in Airflow 3, at some point, Flask is going away, which is a good thing in a way, but also for our current implementation, bad thing. So surely there will be like a way to do this in the future. We will see. Yeah, now let's do the more interesting part, a demo. It's always playing with fire is fun. So here I have a local Airflow instance. Let's start looking at our configuration. So my Memray base folder is basically just a local file folder, like a local file system, because it's on my computer. I don't need S3. And I defined a wildcard pattern for which tasks I want to profile. Yeah. So this, I don't have to run Memray for all tasks in my deployment. And so let's look at our DAG. The code is quite simple. We basically just run some NumPy, and I have a task flow API implementation and a classic implementation. I also have an empty operator, which is not doing anything. It just has to demonstrate that we are not profiling everything. And so let's run this. There we go. As you can see, when we go to the empty ones, we don't have any results. But if we go to the ones we actually wanted to track, we have results. Now, let's access the flame graph. Yeah, there we go. So here we have our flame graph. It's served via our web server. And we have a, I mean, this doesn't look really like a flame graph because we have like just one big function here. But yeah, I think you can imagine how this is going to be useful for like a more complex task. We also have a Memray stats, which is basically a JSON response of like some summary, and a table, which is also generated HTML report, similar to the flame graph. And yeah, with that, this is how it works. Is all good? Well, there are some limitations. You kind of have to figure out how to define which task to profile. It could be static configuration or code, or you find a way to do it more on ad hoc, on demand, for an existing deployment without redeploying. There's currently no nice way to expose like results over time in graphs, or like, I mean, you can export it to a metrics backend, but this is not visible in the Airflow UI. Maybe with P68, this is going to be something we can have in the future, custom UIs for reports. I think in general, Airflow could also like support data quality scores in the UI or something like that. I think this is something interesting. I think also we don't want to show extra links for tasks which are not profiled. I think the current operator mechanism doesn't really support this. You either define it for particular operators or for all tasks. And yeah, Memray doesn't really work with bash operator or Kubernetes spot operator because yeah, it's going to run a new process, sometimes not even Python. So this is mostly for your Python operators or Python implementations of operators. Also, doesn't really work with deferrable tasks because most of the work is in the trigger, not in the operator itself. So with that in mind, I think there's still a lot of potential for this. This was just the start of using Memray and Airflow. I think it would be very useful to profile entire DAGs inside the DAG processor, or yeah, even profile asynchronous code in the triggers, which is, I think when you have like thousands of deferrable tasks running at the same time in your trigger, then Memray becomes a problem. And maybe not only Memray profiling, but other ways of profiling, particularly CPU profiling, could be done with the same way, just use a different implementation. Yeah, maybe we can think about that Airflow has an interface for to run tasks in custom context, so we don't have to do monkey patching, right? This could be something to discuss. Yeah, this is kind of a no-brainer, having a task flow decorator. So when you already have a function, you run a task flow API, why not just use a different decorator to profile it? And maybe we can even profile entire Airflow processes. So I had a discussion before this talk that maybe we want not only to profile the task, but the entire task execution of the Airflow task run command. Yeah, I think that's could be interesting. And yeah, are we supposed to run this in production permanently? No, probably not. Profiling can affect the performance significantly, and if you have performance-critical code, this is a no-go. Yeah, what we have done here is basically like a POC for how we can profile tasks in Airflow, and particularly remotely. So this can run wherever you want. In production, you probably want to be able to run tasks more selectively. Like something failed, or you want to rerun a task with profiling on, or you have a dedicated DAG for stuff you are actually you want to track over time, yeah, but probably not your most critical production workload. So this is things to think about, how this provider could develop over time. And with that, we reach the end of the talk.